The President of the United States is on his way back from China after what I would call a 2 day successful trip. He has made multiple trade deals with China. He's also got China to come on board with two major issues. Number one, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And number two, the Strait of Hormuz has to be open again. And I believe China is now on board. They've promised not to supply any military weapons to Iran. And I think what else is going to happen is China is going to pick up the phone. They're going to call Tehran and they're going to tell the Iranians, open the damn strait. Because when Iran threatens the United States with restrictions on the Strait of Hormuz, it hurts us a little. But we don't know how much it's hurting the Chinese economy. We don't know how much it's hurting the North Koreans. We don't know how much it's hurting the Russians, because our state news media that we have here doesn't cover that, because it doesn't affect upcoming midterms. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing an absolute flex by the news media only in one direction. But we all know the Strait of Hormuz is one of the most important waterways on Earth. And before the war, about a fifth of global oil and liquefied natural gas passed through that choke point, along with other vital supplies like fertilizer. So when Iran threatens Hormuz, this is not a Middle East story. This becomes an oil story, a shipping story, a China story, and eventually an American gas price story. And this is where it gets really interesting, because China is not really America's friend. China is not doing us a favor, but China needs oil. China needs shipping lanes. And according to the U.S., the trade representative, Jameson Greer, China wants the Strait of Hormuz open without tolls, restrictions, or military control. So first off, right here, oil prices are up 3% after the president said he is losing patience with Iran. Now, if the United States is losing patience with Iran and we have enough oil to supply our own country, now we have these oil companies here that are probably price gouging the hell out of us. We can all agree on that. But if the United States, if the president of the United States is fed up with Iran, what do you think Xi Jinping is? Where do you think his perspective is right now with Iran? Because that's huge. And being Iran's number one consumer, number one customer, they need to keep these people happy. So the question now is simple. Did Iran just overplay its hand? Because if Tehran thought it could squeeze America by threatening one of the world's most important energy routes, it may have accidentally put itself in conflict with Beijing's own interests. And the Chinese are going to take care of themselves. That's just what they do. It's just like the president of the United States. He's going to take care of America first. Now, he's going to have to make some negotiations, and he's the negotiator in chief, but that's what needs to happen. Oil prices jumping, Iran running out of room, running out of leverage. And the bigger story is not just oil, it is China.
One thing he agreed to today is going to order 200 jets. That's a big thing, Boeing. 200 big ones. That's a lot of jobs. It's a lot. They're going to do a lot of soybeans for our farmers. They're going to be buying a lot of our farm product, which is great. And President Xi would like to see a deal made. He would like to see a deal made. And he did offer. He said, if I can be of any help at all, I would like to be of help.
Because, he did say that.
Yeah, he did say that. And look, anybody that buys that much oil has obviously got some kind of a relationship with him. But he said, I would love to be of help if I can be of any help whatsoever.
So that's huge. When you have the leader of China jumping in and saying, look, we want to help. We want to be an ally. It's not because they are concerned or really want to help the United States. What it is, it's self-preservation. And you can't disagree with this. Trump said the two leaders agreed on two things. Iran cannot be allowed to get a nuclear weapon. Strait of Hormuz needs to be open. That matters because China is Iran's biggest oil customer, but China also needs this waterway open to keep its own goods and services moving. So Iran thought it was putting pressure on Trump. And it didn't. By threatening Hormuz, Iran may have created a much bigger problem for himself because now Beijing has a reason to tell Tehran, knock it off. They've got a reason to be pissed. And when oil prices are jumping here, I don't even know what the cost of oil or cost of a gallon of gas is in China because their news media doesn't allow that information. Whenever the American press corps landed in the United States, they turned off all their phones, they turned off all of their media, and they left them on Air Force One or locked up. And the Chinese gave them phones, they gave them pens, they gave them all of these things. Apparently, they were all thrown into the trash prior to getting on Air Force One or trying to fly back to the United States. So that should tell you, trust but verify. Let them be nice to you, but don't let them put their electronic devices on Air Force One because that's a security concern in itself. But with China wanting the Strait of Hormuz open, that is a huge leverage. That is a huge opportunity for the United States to really regain some, or I wouldn't say regain trust because I'm going to trust but verify with these people. I think it's an opportunity for us to build a little bit of a coalition there. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And if the president can flip China on Iran, if he can get Iran to blink, that's huge because it shows China that, number one, we want what is best for America. And if what's best for America also allows some benefits for China, then it's a win-win on both ways. And hopefully by taking people like Elon Musk and some of these other CEOs like Apple CEO, NVIDIA, we're going to build a little bit of trust, a little bit more of a coalition there. Now, the big thing there is Taiwan. Taiwan is going to probably become a problem here in the next 5 to 10 years. I don't believe the president wants to kick that problem down the road. He doesn't want to kick it down the curb. But at some point, China is going to want to claim Taiwan. Whether or not it happens now, whether or not it happens in 5 years, whether or not it happens in 20 years, we don't know. But they do have a conflict there that is going to happen. And at some point, the United States is either going to say we're out or we're in. But this could be one of the most dangerous and bloody or deadly impacts that we have in that area is that China-Taiwan takeover. The other thing here, with China saying that they will not supply military equipment and they agree that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons, that is a message to the world, not just Iran. That is a message to the world that Iran is a threat. And if you're in that area, if you are the UAE, if you're Kuwait, we just saw the Kuwaitis capture 4 IRGC sailors that were trying to target U.S. military forces on bases there in Kuwait. The larger message is Iran is a useful tool for oil. But outside of that, even China doesn't trust them. And I don't believe Russia trusts them. I don't believe North Korea trusts them. All of these somewhat bad actors do not trust them. Iran is a wild card because at any point they do something in the strait, it affects the global economy. And I don't believe we need wild cards anymore. We need some consistency. We need some absolute, what I would say, just some calmness in the Middle East. We've got good news coming out here for the UAE. They are saying that they are building a pipeline from the edge of their shoreline where their oil depots are outside of the Strait of Hormuz, basically bypassing this. Now, I looked into this. This is nowhere near completion, but they are accelerating this. They are trying to get this out so that they can avoid Iran completely, so they can cut them out of the equation. And if that is the case, the UAE just raised their leverage at any negotiating table. The other thing that the UAE just did over the last couple of weeks, they left OPEC. And you're basically looking at OPEC here. This is all of these petroleum producing nations here. By leaving OPEC and being able to do their own thing, they're going to be able to leverage this pipeline. I don't know how soon this will be completed. It's not going to be completed anytime soon, but it sends a definitive message to the world and to Iran that we're tired of you having control of that region. We've got other major developments coming out today. The Iranian foreign minister, Aragachi, claims that the Iran and the United States postpone nuclear talks. Tehran is going to prioritize negotiations. The United States said that he would accept a 20-year suspension of Iran's nuclear program, provided the commitment is real. So there's going to be a trust but verify. We will probably be sending in weapons inspectors. We will be sending in uranium detection equipment. We're probably going to be running some scans. The president has alluded to before, the whole point of Space Force is to basically be able to monitor everyone. It's the world's baby monitor, and I'm glad to see that. The other thing, talking about uranium, the United States, this was just released by the U.S. Department of State, that the U.S. has removed highly enriched uranium from Venezuela in a secret mission. So they've let the cat out of the bag as of yesterday. And this is very important because now that we know that Iran has uranium, and we've known this for quite a while, we've conducted this extraction in Venezuela. This sends a message to the world that we may have already been doing this in Iran, right under their noses. Their internet is in a complete blackout. It also sends the message to the world that we are not going to allow these bad actors to have this. It says here, to date, worldwide, the NNSA has successfully removed or confirmed the disposition of 7,340 kilos. I want to say that's about 18,000 pounds, about 9 tons of weapon-usable nuclear material. And I don't think that Iran needs to have this. We saw what they did to the Strait, where they just basically dropped mines in there. They forgot where they were at. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper said all of those mines have been removed. We haven't seen them hit any ships. We've not seen any ships have any problems with the mines. So that leads me to believe they're probably not there either. But by getting rid of this uranium, getting rid of the ability for Venezuela to export that uranium and send it to people like North Korea and China and Russia, some of their biggest consumers, that tells all of these other world leaders that the president is doing multiple things, has multiple fronts working at the exact same time. And that's a real strong message whenever you're sitting across the table from Xi Jinping. I believe the next major meeting that the president of the United States is probably going to have is going to be with Putin, and maybe get Zelensky at the same negotiating table, get them together, and let's get over this Ukraine-Russia thing. Let's redraw some boundaries. Let's redraw the territories there, and let's just quit killing each other. The United States and President Trump has been a peacemaker over the last year and a half, and that's huge. We need that. We need some stability in Europe, in Asia, in the Middle East. I think if we ever had a point where we reached 2 years of stability, the world would improve dramatically. We've got an Al Jazeera reporter formally received Washington's response to its proposal, and the U.S. has rejected all of Iran's conditions. We are not going to allow them to have any nuclear material. And I don't think there's a reason to. Now, the other thing that a lot of the doomers and the Podcastistan people are pushing is that the American economy will collapse. And right now we're seeing in real time that the Strait of Hormuz is closed on certain levels, and the American economy is not collapsing. This is the S&P yesterday, a little before closing, about 2:45 Eastern. It's up 1,600 points over the past year. It was up 27. So this should tell you the news media doesn't always get it right. They get it right for the narrative they're trying to spin, and that's about it. If you were like me and President Trump came into office, and I'll just go ahead and say I did this. The president came into office. He laid out his guidelines for Iran. He laid out his plan for the global markets. And I put some money into the oil futures market. And I'm glad that I did, because you can basically see the way that this curve is flowing. That's the way the oil futures, that's the way the world markets are flowing. And if you got in early, you're probably laughing right now. And I'm not laughing, but I'm very proud of a tip that I got from a good friend of mine. And that's all it was. It was a tip, and I trusted and verified him and ran with it. So I'm going to say thank you to my buddy Glenn for locking that in for me. Now, this is the story here that I think a lot of people are going to miss. The burner phones. The Chinese gave the American delegation burner phones whenever they got on the plane there. And it's very interesting, as cordial as President Trump is, he still is a little apprehensive of what the Chinese people can do.
I have sources that are on the plane, too, and they had to leave their American phones, turn them off. They did not take them into China, or if they did, they left them on the planes. They turned them off. They didn't use them. All the Americans were using burner phones, and they had to destroy them and leave them in China. They don't want anything that belongs to the Chinese
on that plane,
because they could be bugged. There could be spies. They had to check their security. The security was so tight, apparently, at the hotels and in their rooms, and they did do all the sweeps before the Americans went over there, especially the president's room. I have sources.
So that should tell you the president, the Secret Service, we have been burned once or twice. And I don't believe we're going to be burned again. Who knows? This could have been Eric Swalwell's girlfriend that was passing this stuff out. So anyone that thinks that the president is gullible, anyone that thinks his delegation is not looking out for the best interests of America, the safety of the president, you're kidding yourself. When you're throwing their equipment in the trash, and you know the Chinese do the same thing to us. This is a game of cat and mouse on the world stage. And if you don't play the game, you're going to get burned, and you're probably going to give away some conversations that were happening on Air Force One in real time to the Chinese. And the last thing we need is to have them have more leverage here. We've already seen this mayor in California that has now been indicted. She's been arrested. She's a Chinese spy. We know that this is happening. It's happening with us. It's happening to them. We're doing it all around. So that's where we've got to come to. That's the actual position that we need to realize. They are our friend as far as we can verify, as far as we can trust. The real question is not whether China trusts America or America trusts China. We don't. The question is whether China trusts Iran enough to let Tehran mess with its oil supply. And I don't believe that's going to happen. This is why Americans should care. A lot of people hear the Strait of Hormuz and tune out because it sounds far away. But energy, security, that's not far away. Fuel prices are affecting trucking. Trucking affects groceries. Diesel's affecting farms. Shipping costs affect almost everything families buy. So when Iran threatens one of the world's most important energy routes, that is not just a foreign policy issue. That's a working family issue. Weakness overseas gets expensive here at home. The big picture is this. Trump is pressuring Iran from Washington. The oil market is pressuring Iran through prices. And China may be pressuring Iran quietly because Beijing needs Hormuz open. That does not make China our friend. It does not erase the threat China poses on trade, Taiwan, technology, or military power. But it does show something important. Even America's biggest rival, our biggest enemy, knows Iran cannot be allowed to hold one of the world's most important energy checkpoints hostage with a nuclear weapon. Iran wanted leverage, but if it pushes too far, it's going to find itself squeezed between Washington, Beijing, Moscow, and North Korea, and the global oil market. And that is why this Hormuz crisis matters, and basically why the importance that the Iranians thought they had is dwindling on a daily basis. Thank you for watching. If you want to see what China did to Iran, go check out that video right here. And this is where Xi Jinping flipped on Iran, and it's not good for them at all. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.